Is it this or this? The short answer is there are two sides of the same coin. Let's begin by contextualizing where we are today by going back in time. 30 years ago, when parenting, childhood, and education held a different meaning and play was somewhat simpler, not really given a second thought, but more so a part of life. Something that children just did. One never really went into the how they did it or the why it was good for them. One could argue that there weren't many options back then like there are today, but I also remember feeling that there was still so much to do. As kids, we'd spend hours building pretend forts, riding bikes, playing hide and seek, and all sorts of timeless activities. Then why is it that so many of us struggle and are left asking ourselves, our friends, scouring the internet and social media for ways to keep our children occupied and our families entertained? Over the years, with advancements in technology, research, data, information available, and the progression of the modern world as a whole, you'd be right to say that there are a lot of differing thoughts, opinions, beliefs, common practices that make it hard to figure out what's what when I suppose that wasn't really a concern before. There's no denying as a species we've evolved. I also don't believe there's any point wishing we could go back. But for children, parents, educators, I understand the difficulty that arises by living in such a fast-paced society with an overwhelming amount of information at the click of a button or a swipe. To combat this perpetual struggle, we can start by understanding three key truths. First-hand experiences are important. Balance and moderation is key. There's no one way to do things. Now that we've got that covered, let's explore this a little more. The VART learning theory suggests that there are primarily four ways and types of learners. Visual, seeing. Auditory, hearing or saying. Reading or writing. Kinesthetic, doing. It makes sense then why first-hand experience involving a combined use of the above four methods is ideal for children. Data also suggests that children absorb, retain, and relay information in a long-lasting manner. When stated that balance and moderation is key, effectively what I'm trying to explain is that we must be conscious of the pros and cons involved in living and raising children in the 21st century. Did you know that today only 1 in 3 children has ever climbed a tree? Oops. Children around the world are less physically fit than their parents were as kids, a decline that research says could be setting them up for serious health problems when they're grown up. Researchers analyzed 50 studies that included 25 million children in the United States, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and Asia. And what was found was this. Children's speed started dropping in the 1970s, and kids have become more snail-like ever since. We knew this back in 2013, and from the 1970s till now, the number of global households with TVs, laptops, internet access, and video games has soared. This may appear daunting to you because, well, what does one do? But it doesn't really have to be, and I'll tell you why. Like I said earlier, there's no one right way to do things. As a parent, there's many learning environments and learning provocations that I can create for my children, keeping the aforementioned three truths in mind. I'll even use everyday objects as tools and resources to do so. In fact, some days, that's one of my favorite ways to spend time with my kids. I'll take a variety of materials and objects from around my house, like I've done here, have it available for my kids and myself to engage with. See how I've tried to cover the 4 VART learning principles we discussed earlier, while still leaving a margin for discussion, exploration, curiosity, and intellectual stimulation? It's a win-win for everyone. Here's another one of my favorite learning play toys that ever since its release, I use frequently with my kids. This is the Moonlight Story Projector. It's effectively what I feel is a really balanced, fun, modern VART play tool, and I'll tell you why. It's a projector that's linked with an app that you read the story from, that also plays music, creating an incredibly immersive experience for the modern-day child. It allows me and my kids to bond, learn, and rest all at the same time. Cool, right? Did you also know the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which has, by the way, been effective for 30 years this November, states that every child has the right to rest, play, and join in a wide range of cultural and artistic activities. Pakistan happens to be a signed party to this convention, but what am I really trying to get at here? In effect, if play is a universal fundamental right of each child, that indicates just how important it actually is to overall health and well-being, a fact that is at the crux of STOIS' belief system. This also brings me back to one of my opening statements about serious learning and serious play being one and the same thing. The act of play is in fact a serious form of learning for each child, And instead of struggling to strike a balance between the two, we need to understand that they are effectively interchangeable.